Well, if you're like me and you believe every single thing that you hear and read on the internet, then for the last couple weeks, you may have been led to believe that Warner Bros Discovery could possibly own a piece of All Elite Wrestling. This is the rumor that has been speculated on and has been bandied about over the last couple weeks or months. This was something that I had first heard casually mentioned by Conrad Thompson. He was doing an interview. He was doing one of his shows with somebody, and somebody casually mentioned that they believed that Warner might own a piece of AEW, and Conrad said, "That's right." And I don't have that clip here because I was unable to remember what show that was on, but I was able. I kept it in the back of my mind, and I didn't think much else about it, but thought, that's curious. And then I heard it again, and this time I do have the clip. This was Conrad Thompson speculating just briefly with Eric Bischoff as he filled in for John Alba on the Strictly Business podcast. Check out this clip.
But I'm curious if you think there will be ripple effects in what might be an opportunity for a third wrestling organization, or certainly AEW. I mean, I know there's lots of rumor and innuendo that perhaps Turner owns a part of AEW. Nobody knows. It's not a public.
I do. I don't have it written in front of me, but I will stake almost everything I own the fact that Discovery Warner owns 30% of AEW.
I think that 30% number has been floated around on the quote unquote underground railroad of the wrestling universe, if you will. So, I mean, that's a number that's out there, but we don't know for sure.
So now I was really curious. That really had my ears perked up. Now there's something to this, right? There's smoke. Is there fire to this smoke? I had to know, and I was not the only one who was curious about this, as Dave Meltzer himself asked Tony Khan flat out at the AEW WrestleDream conference call, media call thing that they did. And Tony Khan kind of danced around it a little bit and left some room for reckless speculation, which is exactly what we're going to do after this clip. Check this out.
I was just going to ask you, I mean, one of the big questions and one of the big rumors going around has to do with the ownership of the company and WBD. And is there any negotiations going on or anything do they own a minority piece, or is there any negotiations going on in that direction?
Well, it's something we've talked about a lot. There's been a lot of conversations about that. And it's, it's always been something I've been open to. And, between Warner Brothers Discovery and myself, a lot of the financial and structural details of our partnership we've been able to keep between us. But there are things I've always said to be true, that I own 100% of the voting stock in this company. And that I have 100% of the decision-making power in the company. And I've been open to taking on additional partnerships or things of that nature. But we have a really great deal right now with Warner Brothers Discovery, and I would love to have an even longer agreement. And as for them and their stake in the business, I mean, that is something that would be between us. But I would also be open to that, to Warner Brothers, in a future deal, having a piece or a bigger piece potentially. But I would always want to maintain 100% voting control as I have now, and want to maintain, the super majority of stock, which I have now. So I think these are things that are really important to me. But in a future deal, I mean, these are things, I would be open to. There's nothing bad about it. I mean, we've seen in pro wrestling this year, a change of control. I have no interest in a change of control. Would I be interested in taking on additional investment? Yeah, potentially, but it would have to be at the right numbers, and it would have to make sense for us based on how much our business has grown this year. But as for a change of control or giving up any of the voting stock, no, I have no interest in that.
So Tony Khan not giving a straight answer there, and you feel like this would be an easy question to say, no, I am a 100% owner of AEW. But he didn't say that. He said he's 100% what? Controlling owner. He has the controlling shares. And then he went on to say, but he would be open to Warner Bros Discovery owning a piece or a bigger piece of AEW, and that he doesn't see it as a bad thing. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Tony Khan never answers a question straight, first of all. That's where the whole Ariel Helwani thing came from, is Tony famously dances around any kind of real question that any real journalist worth his shit would ask. I mean, certainly Tony will rant for a half hour if you're like, tell us about the Julia Hart, how much she's progressed and how well she's been doing with the House of Black. Yeah, he'll go on a half hour about that, but heaven forbid he answer a question about does Warner Brothers Discovery own a piece of AEW? But I think the answer is clear. It's 100% clear. In my opinion, he would have just said no. What's the point of leaving that out there to recklessly speculate on if they don't own a piece of AEW? Now, how much? Where can we find that information? I can keep digging. I can look into it, but God, I wouldn't even know where to start. How do you dig into if a company has invested a small chunk into a private company? But they do seem to be on the AEW bandwagon, right? David Zaslav famously was the one who offered AEW another show on Saturday night, which everybody criticizes them about, oh, your low ratings and blah, 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 blah. First of all, this was created to appease CM Punk and to keep CM Punk a huge star on their channel. But it was also a way to just have that kind of content with that loyal audience on a Saturday night. I don't think there was any expectation of it doing Dynamite numbers. It's on a Saturday night. It's only going to do so well. I'm sure Tony was like, you know that WWE runs pay-per-views that night, right? And UFC runs pay-per-views that night, right? And people go out and they drink that night, right? And Warner Brothers, they're not dumb. They're like, yeah, of course, we know nobody watches TV on Saturday nights, but we want you on Saturday nights so that we can count on some kind of an audience every Saturday night. That's going to make it appointment television. We don't expect them to be a lot, but we expect them to hold a certain spot. You know what I mean? They know what they're doing. I do think Zaslav owns a share. I think Warner Brothers Discovery has bought into AEW, and I think they're going to have a new TV deal out of it. Tony Khan said in this media scrum that he would even take a pay cut to fucking stay on Warner Brothers Discovery because he loves his relationship with them. Now that could just be talk, you know what I mean? He could just be leveraging for that deal, But who's to say? Now there's rumors that pay-per-views are moving to the Max network, and that would be another big step. This was reported by Andrew Zarian, the Map Men podcast, who had reported that this is basically a thing, that it's not announced yet. It can't be officially announced because it's not set in stone, but this is the direction that they're going. And check out this clip.
What pertaining to AEW.
They didn't announce it because the deal's not final, but this is just them preparing for this. I'm not sure if it's going to be included in that package, but if you're moving Bleacher Report to Max and AEW airs on Bleacher Report, doesn't it make sense that the pay-per-views are going to air on Max? You're not going to run two separate apps that have the same name or two platforms with the same name. And here's the thing, right? AEW has had a monthly pay-per-view since June. Double or Nothing May, Forbidden Door in June. What was July? Was there anything in July or no?
July is usually Fight for the Fallen, and they have like a couple of gimmicky ones, right?
Did they have
They're
a
not
July
pay-per-views.
show? No,
they didn't have a pay-per-view in July.
Okay.
No.
So they had a pay-per-view in May. They had a pay-per-view in June. They had a pay-per-view in August. They had a pay-per-view in September. They have one in October. They have one in November, and they have one in December that's going to be airing, I think, December 29th. It's one of those weeks. I can't remember off the top of my head. They've been running monthly pay-per-views the last couple months. I can't see them expecting people to pay $50 a month, or maybe they're waiting to see what that number looks like.
And when asked specifically about that, this is what Tony Khan had to say about that on the media call.
I am very open to putting AEW events on a streaming platform. I think it would be a great thing. I think we're frankly close enough to the end of our media obligations here and our current deal where that sounds like a new deal to me. And it's the kind of thing that would be part of a new media rights package. And that would be great for us. So it's something I would really like to do. It's outside the scope of our current contract, which is, for our live TV events and our pay-per-view events. Warner Bros Discovery is really excited about doing more events. And right now these are living on pay-per-view, but I do think there's great potential for all of our events to live on a streaming service. And right now, I mean, the top choice for that to me would be Max. I think it's an amazing platform, and we're working with Warner Bros Discovery now. And I think there is great mutual interest in it. But like with all media deals where there's mutual interest, there's a lot of work that would need to go into it to figure out how that would pay everybody, because I have no interest in doing like a tryout. At this point, we've been doing this for 3.5 years. I'm not going to do a 6-month, 9-month tryout on streaming. I don't think that makes any sense for any of us. So, I think we built it to the point where there's a really, really big fan base for our major events. As we've shown this year, it's bigger than ever worldwide.
They're going to get the next rights deal, and it's going to include streaming. And it needs to. And look, there's rumors that even Tony Khan's looking to buy New Japan. And by the time I get this video out, the pay-per-view is tonight as I record this. By the time you're watching this, you may already know what the big change in, the new era in AEW is. I don't think he's buying New Japan, but I could be eating my words right now. You're like, you're so fucking dumb. You're an idiot. You're wrong, because he announced on the show that he bought. I don't think he's buying that. Now, maybe he could be buying like New Japan Strong, right? He could be buying into the American brand of New Japan. But he kind of alluded to that on the call too. Like, he's not going to debunk that because he wants people to tune into the pay-per-view and see what the big deal is. But essentially, like, look, he's got a working relationship with New Japan already. He's already got access to all their talent. He's had access to all their talent for a couple years now. So what would be the point of owning it? And I don't think Bushiroad, the parent company of New Japan and Stardom over in Japan, is selling it. But who knows? Stranger things have happened, and you may already know the result of that. But here's the deal. Tony Khan could be working with New Japan to secure American streaming rights. And buying up Ring of Honor was to get the media. And you heard Sean Ross Sapp was talking about it on his show. And he mentioned that the only reason that anybody would want, that Tony would want to buy New Japan is for the video library. I think, and I had even speculated before that I think you'll see Tony buy up things like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla and other possible indie companies over time, or at least make deals with them to stream their content, similar to what we had heard WWE was doing, and I think they had done for a little bit for like a couple of the European companies, Insane Championship Wrestling over there. And what was the other one? Did they do it? Was it Rev Pro that they were working with? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But you get what I'm saying. Tony could be working some of that shit out on the back end to fluff up a streaming. That's what they need to do. They need to, their next deal, they're going to get the next deal because Warner Bros. Discovery owns AEW, owns a chunk of AEW. Not a controlling portion, I do believe Tony Khan there, but enough to have input. We've heard things like, Warner Brothers Discovery wants more pay-per-views per month. And lo and behold, we've seen more pay-per-views, not per month, per year, from AEW, and other things that they request, they get. They don't have any controlling interest, but if Tony can please his masters, I think he will do that. So I think here's the deal that we have. I don't know if this was along with Collision or if it happened before that. But I think Warner Bros. Discovery, because we also, and I reported on this before, because everybody still likes to speculate, oh, AEW's ratings are dropping. Warner Bros. Discovery is going to drop them, or Warner Bros. Discovery is going to go for WWE instead when their rights deals are up. No. Warner Bros. Discovery, I think, made a decision somewhere along the way that they were going to be in the AEW wrestling business. It fit their content a long time ago. I went over this. We're going to settle in. We're going to have a little talk here. Don't be so fucking antsy, dicks. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button down below. No, I think Warner Bros. Discovery, I had talked about before that they had made the decision to start seeking out content to build around AEW. So AEW was never on the chopping block. Things like Slap Fight, things like AEW All Access, these were things created by the network to come up with things that can play in and around AEW to keep those AEW viewers. Warner Bros. Discovery was putting a heavy emphasis in fandoms. That was one of their things. They wanted to put emphasis on brands and properties that have fandoms. And they also wanted to put a lot of time and effort into non-scripted television, which is cheap and easy to produce. And they're also in sports. They're in the sports business with basketball or hockey. So AEW fits all of those categories. It's a little bit of sports. It's must-watch TV because it's live. So, it's one of those last things that you don't need to catch on streaming, or that you can, but, it's better watched live, right? Because who knows what could happen, yada, yada, yada. You want to be part of that conversation. It's cheap to produce. AEW is getting a lot of money from Warner Brothers Discovery, but it's cheap compared to producing, say, they can buy even rights to things like what's the show that's on The Big Bang Theory? Even the rights to that cost probably as much or more or comparable to what AEW costs just to get rerun rights to a show. Friends is still making millions and millions and millions off replay rights. So AEW, look, new episodes every single week, even through the pandemic. They had must-see live TV, new run episodes, cheap to produce, as predictable and consistent as the sun coming up tomorrow they have been for the last 4 years. Consistent. They have big stars on their TV. They will continue to have big stars. They're going to bring in Edge. They're going to bring in Mercedes Moné. Warner Brothers Discovery is in the AEW business. So when they made that decision, I think they made the decision, look, we want to go all in with you guys. We're going to support you guys. We'll give you more television time. We're going to market you. We're going to, and they have, Tony Khan was just touting about how Warner Brothers did that press release on how big of an event Grand Slam was, yada, yada, yada. They're in the AEW business. I got a cough, excuse me. No, I'm not going to cut it. Fuck that. We'll do it live. Fuck it. We're live, pal. We're not live. Recording, and I could edit it, but it doesn't matter. We're all friends here. So Warner Brothers Discovery is in the AEW business. They're invested in. That's my guess. I have nothing to back that up other than they've been solidly in the corner of Tony Khan. Tony Khan feels very confident in the relationship. He calls David Zaslav Mr. Zaslav. He's very subservient to the network. He owns controlling interests. So every decision is Tony Khan's. But the network has a seat at the table, so to speak, right? To say, hey, have you guys thought about doing this? Maybe we could do that. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do that. And Tony, by all accounts, has been fairly receptive to all of their input, because as long as they're not trying to book the territory, brother, their input can be valued, especially if they want to be partners in this. So that's what that new deal, I think, if it wasn't in place before Collision, definitely I think when Collision was added, that was Warner Brothers also buying into All Elite Wrestling and having some skin in the game with it, which is not bad as long as they don't get to control the company. And then there's a clause where, if they decide not to renew or if shit goes south, that they can just revert that ownership back to Tony Khan, or that goes up for sale as part of the media rights acquisitions deal. If you want to buy, our TV rights, you can buy into the company up to 30% or whatever was speculated too. I'm just spitballing here, but you can clearly see, all signs point to Warner Brothers being in the AEW business. They're going to renew their contract, their rights deals. They're probably going to put them on streaming. I would love to see their back catalog on streaming. So all past episodes of Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, Dark Elevation, Battle of the Belts, all the pay-per-views, the entire history of Ring of Honor. And if there was some sort of deal struck in any way, shape, or form with New Japan, possibly the American viewing rights of New Japan, or, if Tony's smart and he does get a streaming deal, it would behoove him to get other rights like a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla and anything else he can get his dirty little grubby paws on. GCW, if or when that ever comes up. Be a competitor to the WWE Network. That's something I had said before too. The WWE Network owns most of wrestling history, but there's a cutoff. There's a hard cutoff after the Monday Night Wars, after ECW and WCW went out of business. WWE doesn't own anything after that. They own their NXT and FCW stuff, and a lot of their guys come straight out of there, so they have a lot of that. But what about the guys that were in Impact? They don't got nothing on AJ Styles. They don't got nothing on, fucking anybody from Ring of Honor. There's that whole huge gap of talent that came from Ring of Honor, Tyler Black, all of them. You know what I mean? Like, there's a whole huge gap in WWE's missing content library. Now, at the end of the day, when they end up buying AEW and owning everything associated with that, they will once again own all of wrestling. But right now, Tony Khan is in a position where he can theoretically kind of own all of modern wrestling. It's one of the perks where people say, oh, AEW is not competition. Not in the ratings, not even business-wise. They don't have all the international deals. They are not on the level that WWE is. But they have the money to spend that WWE has. So they can buy big contracts like Mercedes Moné and Adam Copeland. But they can also buy media rights. They can buy other companies. They can just outright. The fact that we're even speculating right now, if Tony Khan bought New Japan, you're like, oh yeah, that's possible. If New Japan's up for sale, Tony Khan could buy it. That's bad for WWE. He owns Ring of Honor outright, which was a great score in my opinion. Say what you will about it. Say what you will about what's been done about it. But if if you're looking to the future, everything's streaming, right? Ring of Honor doesn't have a TV deal, but everything is streaming nowadays. So yes, he's got the Honor Club, but if he can sign a new deal with Max, with Warner Bros Discovery to bring AEW content into Max, he can license. Now AEW doesn't even own Ring of Honor, but he can license Ring of Honor to himself, to AEW, to have their content on Max. And he can do the same for Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, which I think didn't Excalibur own a significant share of that company? There you go. Easy peasy. in the bucket. That's where the Young Bucks come from, all your California fuckers. Orange Cassidy as the fire ant guy or whatever. There's a lot of history in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla in AEW currently. Between that and Ring of Honor, fuck. And if he gets some sort of rights to New Japan, now that's a little bit more of a stretch. I think there's very little to that story, but fuck, you guys probably know more than I do if you're watching this after, WrestleDream happened. So I do think, just kind of put a big bow on all of this, we'll wrap this up here. Warner Bros Discovery, I do think, has an investing share, has a stake in the company of AEW. I think they see AEW as a property they want to be in the business of. Tony Khan is famous for saying that it was Warner Brothers Discovery that has sold him on the concept of being a competitor brand, a challenger brand. You always hear Tony Khan say. He said he got that from Warner Brothers Discovery. They don't want to upgrade to WWE. They like the idea of owning, basically having an ownership stake in the second biggest, the competitor, the Pepsi to WWE's Coke, if you will. They like that concept, and then they can do whatever they want with it, and they have been. They can create content out of it however they want. You know, they can just say, hey, we want a pay-per-view every month instead of quarterly. Can you do that? Tony Khan's like, yes, I can. I sure can. Hey, we want a bunch of content for our streaming service. Can you do that? Yes, I can. Hey, we want to run a special on this night. Can you do that? Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I sure can. I can. Tony Khan's the man. Can you? And then all these like the Shark Week specials and the Winter is Coming and the the Dragon fucking episode. AEW, Warner Brothers, they make a good teaming. They make a good pairing. It makes sense to me. I expect them to get a bigger rights deal than they have now. I don't think Tony will take that pay cut he was talking about. I think it will include streaming, and I think Tony will probably try to acquire or at least license other wrestling media to be produced on. And I know also as I record this, there was a big announcement between New Japan and MLW and CMLL. So, maybe New Japan's not going to be involved in this. But you get where things are going with this. I think it's pretty safe to say that Warner Brothers is in the AEW business, and they're smart to do so. If they want to be in the brands, look, they own Harry Potter, the rights to Harry Potter. They own the rights to DC, the Batman, Superman, all that shit, the Joker, Harley Quinn. They own all that shit. Why not also own their own wrestling federation comparable to the WWE? It's not the WWE, but it's a challenger brand. It has big stars, household names. It's on TV every night, does big arenas, does pay-per-views, gives us tons of streaming content comparable to what Peacock has. And as the years go on, people are more familiar with the guys that were in Ring of Honor than they were the guys that were in WCW. You know what I'm saying? So over time, the content that Tony Khan owns is going to probably become more valuable than what WWE has now, which is quickly becoming lost to history. WCW is now, 25 years ago? So it's kind of getting to the point where it's going to be 30, it's going to be 40 years ago. It's going to be old. It's going to be like the old territory shit, all that back in the day stuff. It's going to fade into the past, and the guys you see on your current TV will be guys that have come from Ring of Honor and PWG, and Tony Khan will be there with that content on Max. Boom. But that's just my thoughts. We'll wrap it up there because I've kept you long enough. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. You think I'm full of shit? Tony's full of shit? Warner's full of shit? Do you think they are not going to get renewed because of ratings and blah, blah, blah? Punk's not there anymore. Or do you think, Warner Brothers is seems to be firmly in bed with AEW, and they have a good partnership going, a good strong brand to invest in and put their muscle behind and carry into the next 4 years or whatever the TV deal's for. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next.
Oh yeah, thanks for checking out the video. Yeah, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like it if you liked it. Yeah, and you can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on the channel. Oh yeah, dig it.